Ndi mu loudspeaker. Ndi mu loudspeaker. Naye baaba eno obudde bugenda ndi ne musajja wange ettoomu wano.
Batugira mu Ministers Village basajjamu.
Nkugambye.
Olaba basayidde mmiro ojja kwekanga nga UBM egenze.
Naye simanyi kifiida kyembulira mpitira ku Irene oyo.
Empewo ya leero tujja gibulira.
Hi, Rita. How are you? What's that? Please continue to watch that.
Tugenda kateekawo ku screen to put the flyer. How do okimanyi engeri gy'okikola?
Anti jjukira nyina n'okuprojectinga kividiyo.
Oba share. I'm not allowed to share. Nga muli bakambwe ku linki yamu. Are you allowed to share that site?
Kankuwe. You share now.
Abula okambuwadde.
Rika, let me your seat. Let me sit on your seat.
Okay, let me get
That's really saying.
Rika, it shows on the screen.
Yes, I can see.
Kale. Give us a few minutes. Yes, Okay. Sure. Yes. I know you want this.
Closer to the end. Yes. Yes. Oh, are you? Wow. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the team from Zimbabwe and our visitors from other countries. You're most welcome to Uganda House. We are going to have an interesting discussion. My name is Angela Nakafero. I serve as the Commissioner of Gender and Women Affairs, Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development, Government of Uganda. I warmly welcome you to this side event. I'm honored to moderate the session, and I believe we're all going to learn from this experience. First and foremost, I would like to thank our partners, UNFPA, Judiciary, UN Women, our partner Zimbabwe, and of course, Government of Uganda, and FIDA for hosting this important side event. Excellencies, you're most welcome to Uganda. I'll introduce our distinguished guests as we go through the speeches and the statements. And allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to say that when justice is delayed, justice is denied. So with that understanding, we are here to discuss justice without delay, transforming the justice system for survivors of gender-based violence in Uganda and Zimbabwe. This is an issue where none of us is safe, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever we are, regardless of our class, regardless of our country, regardless of our positions in society, gender-based violence, you can become victims, and at times we are survivors of the same. So allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to invite our first speaker, Honorable Senator Monica Mr. Apologies for mispronouncing your name. Honorable Monica is the Minister of Women Affairs, Community and Small and Medium Enterprise Development in Zimbabwe. She's been a minister, she has served as a minister in different portfolios in Zimbabwe. She's a woman activist, and she has been a very strong advocate for gender equality and women's empowerment in Africa. I happen to serve with her on the African Union Specialized Technical Committee for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment in Africa. Honorable Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Angela. And first of all, I would like to thank the government of Uganda for allowing Zimbabweans to come and feel so much at home at the Uganda House. Thank you very, very much. We are sincerely honored. We are coming from a very long historic relationship and which continues to deepen. And especially when it comes to issues of gender equality and women empowerment, we have been working very closely for many, many years. And today it's an important day where we are talking about women's economic empowerment and access to justice. So unfortunately, we didn't do any introduction, so I don't have my salutations in place, but I would like to say, Madam Chair, the UN Women, I don't see her, the UN Women Deputy Executive.
She'll be joining us.
She'll be coming?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And of course, I've just been working as my neighbor here from UNFPA. We do have senior officials from the government of Zimbabwe. We have got the Deputy Chief Secretary here, Reverend Amasani. I've got my deputy from the ministry. I have also the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Justice, Mrs. Nyemba there from Zimbabwe. And of course, my sister, we always work together. Thank you very much once again. It's a good opportunity. And let me thank all those who have made this possible, who have been able to help us. UNFPA representatives, distinguished guests. I'm deeply honored to deliver these remarks as a co-hosting for this important side event. At the onset, allow me to express my sincere appreciation for our co-host, Uganda, a country which continues to demonstrate commendable leadership in developing and implementing transformative justice systems for survivors and gender-based violence. As we exchange our experiences today, we also look forward to learning from each other, as well as from you, representing diverse countries and institutions who are gathered here today. In my contribution, I will highlight our own initiatives in our country, particularly our efforts to integrate economic empowerment into the national framework for responding to gender-based violence. Chairperson, Zimbabwe has implemented several interventions in building resilient women and girls who can confidently set and sustain their right to justice. The interventions, I'll go through a few of those. Skills development and training programs. This is done through vocational training institutions and also community outreach skills training programs. Then the issue of financial inclusion initiatives. This is done through various financial mechanisms, such as the Women's Microfinance Bank, the Community Development Fund, the Women Development Fund. These are funds which are within my ministry, which we help the women to make sure that they start their businesses. And also we have got a bank which is called the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Corporation. All these are under my ministry. And the sole purpose of these institutions, financial institutions, is to make sure that access to finance is reached to each and everyone. Because if we don't empower our women, where there is inequalities, there will always be injustice. We are talking about access to justice. Access to justice only happens when we have removed inequalities. So as we support our women who are into business, market access and value chains is also of great importance. This we do to ensure that women move beyond subsistence production into commercial participation, increasing their income, their security, and bargaining power. We also look at the livelihood initiatives, specifically targeting our women and families who are also in place to promote self-sufficiency and reduce economic stressors that exacerbate violence and dependence. This includes agricultural inputs and machinery support, The Agri for She initiative that is making sure that we target all of the farmers, subsistence farmers, by making sure we avail what we call presidential inputs, a bag of maize seed, a bag of traditional grain seeds, fertilizer, to make sure that our women all the way to the rural places are self-sufficient, especially when it comes to food security of our country. We have also gone further to establish safe markets and safe working spaces, because for our women to succeed, it's important that they work in a dignified place where they can do business without fearing for their life. So we've established these safe markets and safe working spaces, and we are very grateful to UN Women in particular. They came on board and provided this gender responsive infrastructure, and today we are seeing these structures protecting our women, giving them dignity, safety, and economic participation is actually improving while enabling income generation. Zimbabwe has taken the following significant steps to integrate economic empowerment into its GBV response services. And I'll just mention a few here, the one-stop centers. These were established with the support of UNFPA under the Spotlight program. These are there, and we've seen really numbers of gender-based violence going down in areas where there is these one-stop centers, because they offer comprehensive multi-sectoral GBV response services. In addition, also to providing immediate response and access to justice, the one-stop center is one place where a gender-based violence survivor or victim can rush to. All under one roof. There is a lawyer, there is legal services, there is counseling services, because we all know that gender-based violence is traumatic. And so there's a counselor at that place. There's also a creche, so that if they've got children, they'll be able to continue with education. And then at the same place, there's also a safe market, so that you can continue to train them livelihood skills. So these are going a long way in making sure that we are responding to gender-based violence. So, like I say, in addition to providing immediate response and access to justice, this model intentionally incorporates economic empowerment components, including referrals to vocational training, because what we have discovered is in areas where our women are empowered, we have less statistics when it comes to gender-based violence. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much, and we are very grateful for our development partners as you enter. In addition, also, we have seen that it's important to train our women, our SMEs, our girls to be economically empowered, because when they've got their income generating projects, you can actually see that they have a life of their own. They don't need to really be going out, or even some of them have been involved in the oldest profession. So in these areas, we train in vocational training centers. We give them all the skills to do income generating projects, social protection schemes, and financial literacy programs. So this holistic approach ensures that survivors are not forced to remain in abusive situations due to economic dependence. Because before, you would tell a woman with 5 children who is going through abuse in her home that you need to move out, the question they will ask is, where do you want me to go? So the one-stop centers is actually providing a place, a gap. Somebody said, are you trying to promote divorce? And we said, no, this is a gap which we are giving to. Whilst counselors are also talking to the victim, they also talk to the perpetrator, so that at least a solution for a way forward can be found. So the safe shelters, I told, they provide that temporal protection and that secure accommodation. Because if they go to police and there is no secure accommodation, it means after police ask them, takes the statement, they will have to go back to the same home. So we have actually provided for that time secure accommodation for our survivors, because we don't want them to be vulnerable. These shelters also integrate livelihood support initiatives, including skills training, as I said, entrepreneurial development and connections of microfinance opportunities. We have discovered that when women are given an opportunity to learn, when women are given an opportunity to feel that they are able to do something, they will do it. In this position, I've been in this, I'm a woman empowerment activist, yes. She knows very well because Angela knows I started off as a very young girl, 15 years, when I joined the struggle for liberation. First, what I was fighting for was opportunities for all, but particularly for girls, because girls, women in my country, colonialism, they were oppressed 3 times. Oppressed in your family, oppressed at community level, oppressed also by colonialism. So these are areas which, when I look at women, no matter where they are, when you pinch them and give them an opportunity and they feel secure, you will be amazed by the amount of information they have. I have learned a lot from these women, starting from the rural areas. So we are very grateful with the support of UNFPA under the Women at the Center program. Zimbabwe is enhancing its GBV case management systems, including referral pathways, which significantly improve survivors' access to health, their access to justice, and also economic empowerment opportunities. These things, you can't separate them. If women are empowered, they obviously, there's less gender-based violence. In most areas where we've done our research in our country, in the poorest areas, especially semi-arid areas, that's where you see the numbers of gender-based violence. And the mobile stop centers, which were introduced also, they've allowed us to move into those hard to reach areas so that at least the women will be able to do. Our president, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa's motto is, don't leave anyone behind or any place behind. So we have been really going all out, and we want again to thank the development partners who have been with us. There has been also a pivotal aspect of the Women at the Center program, is the multi-sectoral service provision, which I just talked about, the mobile one-stop center. And you can actually see that this kind of model it's important. And as we go on these mobile one-stop centers, I see the CEO of our Gender Commission is here, and they've been on it with our UNFPA. Through the mobile one-stop centers, survivors are provided again those safe spaces. Because you can't ask in the public, a woman will never feel confident. You really need to create a private place where they feel comfortable to talk about what is going on in their lives. And that is what has been provided by the mobile one-stop centers. We are continuing to work with everyone. As a Ministry of Women Affairs, our job is coordinate. It's a whole government approach. We work with private sectors. We also work with the commercial banks in my country who used to think women are risky customers are beginning to take women very seriously because they are playing a very key role in the economic development through the activities they are doing with the help which we are giving them. So yes, we will continue to do deliberate efforts to extend the mobile one-stop center because we've seen it will reach out to many more. Evidence-based interventions are also being implemented, and this is engaging traditional leaders. And as a ministry, we have also found that it is important to upscale our male engagement sessions because we do not want a situation where women are always talking about issues of justice, issues of gender equality, because these issues of gender equality and women empowerment are not morality issues. These are really very strategic steps which any government should take to really develop their economy. So we are making sure we engage traditional leaders, faith-based leadership. We know they are custodians of a lot of our women and girls, and we want them to move with us. And these initiatives aim to tackle gender inequality and harmful social norms that restrict women's access to economic impact, patriarchal thinking, all that. We are all doing it, as a whole of government approach, whole multi-sectoral approach. And as I end, it is important also to highlight that to address the systemic and structural economic injustices which are faced by survivors of gender-based violence, and just to ensure sustained funding for response and prevention efforts. As a country, we are finalizing a study on the economic cost of GBV. I can't sit in cabinet and argue and say gender-based violence is a cost to the economy without providing statistics. There's a cost to it, and this is what we are looking at. We will be able to convene the highest office. And once that study is completed, the findings will then enhance our understanding of the economic dimensions of GBV at all levels, including at the individual and family levels. We believe that the increased awareness will not only inform better resource allocation, because you know, ministries of women affairs are always at the bottom of the resource allocation. And you know, we are still fighting with gender equality. In a cabinet of 26, there are only 6 women. So the issues, I always tell my ministry, the issues of gender equality, we need to shout about them so that they will never be put under the table. In conclusion, I want to emphasize that, thank you, Madam. I have the honor to be talking as much as I'm coming to a conclusion. I don't know whether I should welcome you in the building, which belongs to the Thank you very much. As I conclude, I want to emphasize that economic empowerment is not merely about income generation. It is also about restoring dignity. Our people need to be dignified. Our women are confident. As we commemorated International Women's Day on the 4th of March just last week, we were right in the grassroots, with the grassroots women who were so happy and confident, showcasing what they have been trained and successfully improved their lives. So it is really that dignity we need to restore. We also need to give them power. We also need to give our women voice, because where their voices are not, they are not there. When we don't have women's voices, when we talk about climate change and we don't have women's voices, it means there's something which we are missing out and we'll never get the impactful results which we are seeking. So yes, we want to continue to find safety for our women. We want to continue to demand justice and assert rights, like what the Secretary General of the UN said during the opening of our CSW70. Rights, you demand them. They are not given to you. So we are very sure and clear that when women are economically empowered, they no longer have to choose between survival and justice. Instead, they can speak up. They can report abuses. There is no fear of saying, what if I speak out about the father because he's the one who is looking after the family? Government says, speak out, report abuses. There's always someone out there to listen to each and every girl who may be going through abuse. So this is what we do to continue to encourage people to report abuses, resist oppression, and actively rebuild their lives. I really want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Monica, for sharing the experience. You really emphasized the aspect of women economic justice. It's about dignity, it's about power, it's about the voice, it's about women demanding for our rights. Thank you very much. We've learned a lot from you from Zimbabwe. Your Right Honorable Prime Minister, most welcome. Thank you for joining us. Allow me to invite Honorable Doris. Doris will have to start a little bit early so that we are able to capture time. So Doris is the UN Women Special Representative to the African Union Commission and United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. She's really the voice for AU, for women when it comes to the AU business, when it comes to the ECA business and processes. Doris, you're most welcome to address us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, representative of civil society organization, women's rights organizations, youth organization, civil society in general, and our colleagues from the system. First, let me apologize for being late, for arriving late at this very powerful table. I had another commitment, so I was running from one meeting to the other. It's also a pleasure to be in this house because the government of Uganda is the chair of the board of UN Women. So I feel like us. It's always a pleasure to be in your company, Honorable Minister. You bring so much energy and so much passion. We feel that this is not just a job for you. It's really, you really believe in it. So we thank you for everything you do for women. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is, I should have said that I'm actually representing my Deputy Executive Director, Dr. Nyahazai Gobonzwanda. I had to actually practice because when you read Gobonzwanda, it doesn't, it's not written as Gobonzwanda, but she told me it's Gobonzwanda. Yeah, so thank you. I'm here representing her because she's actually pulled in another meeting, but her spirit and her engagement is with us here. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this side event on the margins of the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. I would like to begin by congratulating the governments of Uganda and Zimbabwe for their leadership in convening this very important discussion and for their continued commitment to advance access to justice for women and girls. This conversation is particularly timely because, of course, of the theme of the CSW this year. So the priority theme of the CSW, ensuring and strengthening access to justice for all women and girls, including by promoting inclusive and equitable legal system, eliminating discriminatory laws, policies, and practices, and addressing structural barriers, reminds us that justice is not about laws on paper. It is about whether institutions work for women in practice. So that's what we've just heard from the minister. It is about whether survivors of violence can report abuse safely, especially when they are economically empowered. Whether evidence is collected effectively, whether cases are heard without delay, and whether justice systems respond with dignity, fairness, and accountability to women and girls. Despite global commitment to equality, violence against women and girls remains widespread. Too often, survivors encounter justice systems that are slow, fragmented, or difficult to access. Procedural delays, limited services, and persistent gender biases within institutions can discourage survivors from reporting abuse or pursuing their cases. When these barriers combine, justice becomes obtained for those who need it most. This is why the theme of today's event, justice without delay, is so important. Justice delayed is justice denied. We all know it, particularly for survivors of gender-based violence. It is actually encouraging that we are seeing some important progress, and we just heard progress from from Zimbabwe, countries are increasingly recognizing that transforming justice systems requires a comprehensive approach that connects legal reform with institutional practice, survivor services, and accountability mechanism across the entire justice chain. Uganda and Zimbabwe provide powerful examples of this integrated approach. In Uganda, reforms within the justice sector, including the Justice for Her model, demonstrates how coordinated action across the judiciary, prosecution, police, health services, and social welfare institutions can significantly improve survivors' outcome. Special gender-based violence court sessions strengthen medical legal coordination, bolstered by state-of-the-art forensic capabilities, and expanded legal aid and psychosocial support are really helping to ensure that survivors are not only heard, but that their cases are processed more effectively and efficiently and fairly. Initiatives such as this are to be encouraged. So the partnerships that were mentioned earlier are very important. So similarly in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe has introduced some innovative measures such as victim-friendly courts, virtual court systems, decentralized legal aid services, and mobile one-stop centers that bring justice services closer to communities, especially women in rural and underserved areas. These successes underscore a fundamental truth. Justice cannot be delivered in a vacuum. It demands a seamless, unified front, an integrated ecosystem, an unbreakable chain of coordination linking government, institutions, civil society organizations, and international partners into a single survivor-centered force. At UN Women, advancing women's access to justice remains a central pillar of our work. In partnership with governments, the judiciary, civil society organizations, funding partners, and UN agencies, we are supporting efforts to strengthen survivor-centered justice systems that are accessible, accountable, affordable, and responsive to the lived realities of women and girls. Affordability is really an important matter. So this includes supporting legal reform, strengthening the capacity of justice actors, expanding legal aid, and promoting integrated services that address the multiple needs of survivors, from protection and legal representation of psychosocial support and economic empowerment, which we eloquently heard about earlier. Today's discussion offers an opportunity not only to showcase promising practices, but also to deepen partnerships and share lessons that can inform global efforts to eliminate violence against women and girls. It is important for Africa to show that we are leading in many ways. We have good practices to show and to share with the world. As we move forward with the CSW70, we must remain guided by a clear principle. Every woman and every girl has the right to live free from violence. And when violence occurs, she must have access to justice that is timely, fair, and centered on her dignity and rights. I wanted to reinforce the element of dignity because it is about restoring the dignity of women and girls. Let this conversation inspire renewed commitment. At least we from UN Women, we want to here also renew our commitment commitment to work with member states, to work with civil society, to work with youth organizations to end violence against women and girls. We need stronger collaboration and greater investment in justice systems that truly work for women and girls. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency Doris, for those remarks. We'd also like to extend our appreciation to UN Women, because our UN Women has been part of the institutional strengthening in all our countries. So thank you very much and thank you for our appreciation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to our panel discussion on the subject matter. I have 4 members of the panel. Madam Stamali Wakoli, seated next to me. She's serving as the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions and Head of Gender, Children and Sexual Offences Department, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in Uganda. You're most welcome, Stamali. My next panelist is Madam Lydia Najemba Wasula. She's currently serving as the Principal Probation Officer, Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development, Government of Uganda. She'll talk to us about what happens of issues that involve children and vulnerable women. My third panelist is Miss Irene Ekonga. She works with FIDA Uganda, and she's a very strong advocate for women access to justice. My fourth panelist is Mrs. Nyemba. Mrs. Nyemba is the Secretary of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Government of Zimbabwe, and she's also serving as the Permanent Secretary. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Allow me to invite Samali as our first panelist. Samali would like to learn from you. All the previous speakers are talking about strengthening GBV case outcomes through a sector-wide approach, the entire society approach in terms of access to justice. So we would like to hear from you how Uganda has implemented this. What are we learning from this sector-wide approach to access to justice? What challenges and how have you addressed them?
Thank you so much, Madam Greta. A clear perspective. As the country, Uganda adopted a sector-wide approach where we incorporate most of the key stakeholder justice actors working together as a team. And in this, the objective is to ensure that we have coordinated and systemic approach in handling most of the cases. So we have joint case review platforms, GBV coordination meetings, and have a shared reporting tool that helps to fast track and manage cases of GBV. Throughout the practice, we have now learned to come up with standardized procedures that are aimed at ensuring that all our victims have to be treated with a lot of priority, and to ensure that each institution has minimum standards that we can each benchmark on and ensure that we handle these cases right from the entry to the justice system to the end. We realize that more often, if you focus on only courts and you don't have any input as to the entry, then most of our cases will not either be reported or they will die at that. So with the support from UNFPA, we started off having special sessions for SGBV as a way of dealing with the challenge of delayed trials, because it has been said here that justice delayed is justice denied. So we have so far handled 75 sessions across the country and been able to dispose of over 4,000 cases. And out of these special sessions, we have had great learnings. And one of the key important lessons that we picked from these sessions is that because of the economic dependence that most of our victims, who are women and children, have on the perpetrators, it affects the case outcomes. And also, the longer the case stays in the system, the person will, it breeds also impunity, but then also if somebody is not receiving a solution to their problem immediately, then they are likely to give up. We also come from a society that is patriarchal, and there is this need of wanting to settle each and everything and trying to defend the family system, and even where the family is not there. Because if the father is sexually abusing his own children, then there can't be any family. But we would want to also settle such cases. So such cases, if they're handled quickly, it helps to expedite and then also end all forms of impunity. So as a result of the support we have from UNFPA and the session, now we have come up with a great project that is being supported by UN Women, the Justice for Her program, where our focus is on justice without delay. And we intend not to have these cases in a session bid, but to have them being heard on a daily basis, such that the moment the case is reported, it is processed and it goes to court immediately. In fact, most of these sexual offenses, you may find that some of the perpetrators are admitting. But if somebody is admitting, why do we delay with such a case in the system? So those are the cases we are focusing on. And this Justice for Her program is based on 3 pillars: that the cases will be heard on daily basis as it comes, and we prioritize GBV to ensure that victims of crime are able to have their cases fast-tracked. And in this process, we are focusing on their dignity and ensuring that case management is appropriately handled. We are also focusing on expanded access to legal aid and psychosocial support. More often when we talk about psychosocial support, a lot of focus is given to the victims of crime, but this time around, even the service providers, we are also given that opportunity, because you handle these cases every single day and you can't be immune from vicarious trauma. And we carry it also back home. We also, as service providers, don't want to end up being or extending GBV in our homes as a result of the work we are doing. So a lot of emphasis is made on counseling and services that are offered to victims of crime. We intend to have dedicated courts that are trauma-informed and sessions that will ensure timely hearings and improved coordination between stakeholders, and victim-centered services that are essential, and a sustained investment in the justice sector that will ensure that all cases are heard and disposed of as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Madam Somali. We hope that those initiatives are going to ensure that the victims and survivors of gender-based violence, by the way, in Uganda, sexual gender-based violence is always number 1 in terms of the number of cases reported to police. 70% of the workload. So we don't take the efforts of the judiciary and other institutions for granted. We are hopeful that come 2 years from now, we'll not be having backlog in Uganda. And of course, the survivors and victims of GBV will also access justice. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we really request you to register. It's important to us because we'll be sharing reports and some of the presentations. So please make sure you register and you put all the details so that we can communicate in future. Allow me, Excellencies, to invite my next panelist, Jemba Lydia Wasula. Lydia, how I, as the Principal Probation Officer in the Ministry of Gender and Social Development, how are you supporting children access justice in Uganda, quality justice, quality services in the most timely manner? Over to you, Lydia.
Excellencies, Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. Like the Assistant DPP has already emphasized to us, we work through a multi-sectoral approach in Uganda. So we work together as a team to deliver justice outcomes to all those that are in need. So in this, there is no way you can roll out the function, the probation function. So in Uganda, our probation officers are two-faced. They are the ones in charge of social welfare, but also at the same time in charge of executing the probation function. When it comes to the probation function, we are multi-faced because we ensure victim impact assessments that contribute effectively to the justice outcomes. Our courts, like Madam Samari has already mentioned, require victim impact assessments and community impact assessments, which are fully prepared by the probation officers. These support the judicial officers in understanding the impact of violence on the individual, on the child, but also from the community perspective. That's why they are to both the community impact assessment and the victim impact assessment. In this, we conduct a comprehensive assessment of our survivors to document the physical, the psychological, and the socioeconomic impact. This information is very instrumental in forming the basis of the victim impact statements that we present to courts, for the judges, for the judicial officers to make their informed decisions. In addition to the assessments, we also do provide psychosocial support. We all know and appreciate that the victims, many of these victims, especially the children, don't have anyone to talk to because some of the perpetrators are their very caretakers, are their biological parents even, and the parents and the people who are ultimately supposed to take care of them. So they experience a lot of trauma, fear, anxiety, all experiences. They have a lot of tears, too many scars on their bodies, and sometimes they don't have anyone to talk to, like I've already mentioned. So the probation officers come in at hand to support this whole process through counseling and emotional support, which ultimately strengthens the survivors' emotional readiness to share their experiences. When someone shows up and the person is ready, able and willing to listen and support these children, I want to base my discussion on children because, yes, these children open up ultimately and they speak up and they share and they also, they are not intimidated anymore. You know the perpetrators, how the perpetrators intimidate them from speaking up. Will you ever tell anyone, I'm going to kill you? You see this knife? I'll shoot you. You know anything. So when they know they have a fallback position of the probation officers through the psychosocial support, it helps them to speak up. And when they speak up, of course, this reveals a lot of information that supports the whole process. So And we also know that in many cases, especially in communities, in the rural communities, they are also forced to withdraw the cases, you know, to talk out the cases out of the judicial system and withdraw them. But this kind of fear is all taken away by our support of the probation officers. The probation officers further build their capacity in understanding their rights within the legal system, and the purpose of which how they will be held to the impact assessments. So this support helps the survivors remain engaged throughout the whole process, the judicial process, the legal process, in the investigations, in the trials, but also during the times of interactions with the courts, with the prosecutors, with the medical staff, the police. They easily open up because of the back position of the probation officers. Yes, like she has already talked about coordination, but I still want to emphasize the purpose of coordination, that when we come together as police, the prosecutors, the health practitioners, the civil society, and we interact with these victims at a time, it helps them to reduce secondary victimization, because they don't keep repeating the same stories over and over again. Because we are working together, she has already shared with us all, and each one of us has picked his or her component, so we know how to go about the process. The victim does not have to repeat the same story and the pain and the stigmatization and the over and over again. So this, our social workers, the counselors, and legal aid providers work together, and we, through a coordinated process, to support the police interviews, the medical examinations, the court proceedings, to reduce the emotional burden of repeatedly narrating the trauma experiences. In other words, we are again bridging the gap between the gap of impunity, so they are able to speak up, and the prosecutors are able to take up the cases with a lot of information. So this is how we are working, and this has been very instrumental, because even in the trainings that someone has talked about, we also part of it. It's a coordinated process. We come together. It's not only legal trainings alone, but we come together to give a lot of information about many other topics. I'll submit for that.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Lydia has emphasized the importance of a sexual approach, even when with cases that involve children who may not have a voice or who may fear of being intimidated. I think, ladies and gentlemen within this room, we need to challenge ourselves. How many of us really engage our children, and especially those in our homes, find out what is happening in their lives? We do it. We are too busy running around with work, and we forget to engage our children, to engage our relatives, who may at one time find themselves totally silent. We find ourselves waking up the realities that violence is happening in our home space, within our homes and families. It's a challenge to all of us. So allow me, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, come on. Madam Irene Ekwanga from FIDA. FIDA has been in terms of promoting women and girls' access to justice in Uganda. So I'd like to learn from you how it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Madam Moderator, Your Excellencies, the senior cabinet officials, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Irene Koka from Uganda, and as a women's rights organization, as a feminist organization working in Uganda, we provide legal aid. We provide free legal assistance for women and girls. And the model that we use, we like to call holistic legal aid. Holistic legal aid is rooted in our identity as a feminist organization, as a women's rights organization that recognizes that justice for women cannot be gender blind. The manner in which we provide legal aid, legal support, legal advice for women cannot be gender blind. It is also rooted in the understanding that what comes into our doors as legal issues, as legal problems, a property dispute, and so on, is usually triggered by an event in that woman's life that has caused her trauma as well. So it could be a widow, for instance, coming for levels of administration, but after a bitter struggle with her in-laws in relation to her late husband's property. It could be a mother that is seeking custody for her children because of a difficult separation with her partner. It could be a survivor of domestic violence that comes in to enforce her right to property that she's being dispossessed of by a former partner. And so we ensure that we do not ignore these events that trigger the legal issue that is bringing these women into our offices. We ensure that we also do not ignore the issues that cause them to be vulnerable to abuse in the first place. And usually this means a certain form of disempowerment, and many times this is economic disempowerment that as has already been said, usually exposes them to staying in abusive relationships because of their economic dependency. So we try to address this together, and this is what we call holistic legal aid. We ensure that we are dealing with the legal problem, but we are also dealing with the psychosocial needs of the woman that comes into our doors, and also ensuring that there's an aspect of economic empowerment in our response to their legal issue. And we have found that this is important in order to ensure that justice outcomes, whether it's a judgment or it's a memorandum of understanding from a mediation process, for it to be sustainable, you have to ensure that the woman is well. For it to transform the life of this woman, you must ensure that you dealing with all of these issues. In order to shift our relations, you have to ensure that you're dealing with this holistically. So that is the approach that we are using as an institution. Right now, we provide legal support through 14 legal aid, we call them legal aid clinics, offices around the country. And we have 4 counselors who are full-time counselors within the institution that provide psychosocial support. We also have a partnership with the School of Psychology from Makerere University that also provides us with additional counselors that can provide psychosocial support to our clients, both women and children. And as much as possible to increase the reach of these services, we also provide telecounseling. As much as the physical interaction is always preferred by a lot of the women and the children that we work with, it is not possible for us to have counselors in all of these places right now, although that is something that we are working on. So we have also adopted telecounseling to make sure that they can receive the support that they need, as well as doing capacity building for our lawyers so that they are able to practice feminist lawyering, so to speak, and do not re-traumatize the survivors. And then the last I will speak about is the economic empowerment. So we have what we call the SAME model, which is the self-actualization model for empowerment for our clients, in which we do various things. One of them is we do skills training, depending on what their interests may be and what resources they may have available. So we'll teach them maybe soap making or urban farming. And so we do that skills training for our clients. We support those that are already organized in groups to register these groups so that they can have access to different financing opportunities. We help them with their business registration. Some of them have businesses that they're trying to formalize. So we support with that business registration process, but we also support with helping them to apply for funding from different institutions, and link them as well to different opportunities that are available from financial institutions. Some of the banks and microfinance institutions have training facilities, as well as funding opportunities that some of these women, even in their informal businesses, can access. And so we try to provide these linkages and support them with the legal documentation that they need to be able to access them, to ensure that they have agency, but they can also make decisions. We find that it is critical to empower women so they can choose for themselves what it is that they want to do, and their choices are not shaped by the need to survive. So that is the approach that we use. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. The experience of FIDA proves that there's a lot of work when it comes to government and private sector partnerships. So it fits perfectly well in terms of strengthening systems around government, but also public-private sector management. Allow me, Excellencies, to step backwards and try to find out from summary. Most cases fail when they are presented through the justice system because of the evidence. The issue of forensic evidence is very paramount in terms of access to justice. I'd just like to find out from summary how I'm going about this, ensure that cases that are reported are not dismissed on grounds of lack of evidence.
I am grateful for this opportunity, and maybe for everybody who is in this room. How many of you would you hear a notice from a perpetrator that lied and be raping my wife? So please come and witness. It will not happen. So perpetrators don't give such notice that I am going to do ABCD. And most of the offenses that are in GBV category, they are almost always two people, the perpetrator and the victim. And in our country, we have progressive jurisprudence to the extent that if my victim is believable, then I don't need another witness. The question is, how do I make my victim believable? So it places a heavy burden on victims of crime in trying to explain themselves, and the focus is never on why did the perpetrator do this? To the contrary, we are placing now the burden on the victim of why are you accusing an innocent person? But most times, by the time a person comes out and claims that they were abused, 80% chances are that it is true. So we need to have a mindset change where our focus is not on what our ideal victim ought to have done or ought to be, but rather punish or focus on the actions of the perpetrator. So, but because we are tied on wrong legal principles, and that is what our law is, so now we need an extra eye. And the extra eye we have identified is in forensic evidence. Because if we are talking about a case of sexual assault and I find semen, I mean, that places you at the scene, and also that shows that you actually participated. So forensic evidence for us is a very critical component in trying to bring justice to many of the women and girls. And more often it has helped me not even to put the victims of crime to come and testify. Because if I have a forensic report explaining the rest of the aspects, I don't need even the victim to come to court and listen and talk about it. So at the national structure under the Ministry of Gender, among our key national interventions that we have is a working group, a national medical legal working group. It's a national group, and this group is funded and supported largely by UNFPA. And the objective of this group is to ensure that we work with legal professionals and medical professionals, not only to ensure appropriate gathering of evidence. So we are focusing on proper collection, proper preservation, and proper presentation of the evidence. Because if the evidence has not been properly presented to court, then it will also affect the case outcome. Also, we need the medical practitioners to also know that when they receive a victim and they examine them, they are not making a report for their fellow medical people. So they should tune out the language and understand that they are writing these reports to non-medical practitioners, and these are legal professionals. So if you're to make your report, make the report applicable and usable by other sectors. So that is the purpose for which this group is established. It's a multi-sectoral group, and it has members from the Ministry of Health. It has from the Uganda Police Forensic Services, the DNA experts, then it has prosecutors, it has judicial officers, and it has a team from the Ministry of Gender. It also helps to facilitate proper referral mechanisms, because if a case is concluded, then what happens to these victims of crime? In one of the most moving cases, I had a child that had been defiled by the ankle and suffered fistula. So, yes, we were processing the case, but I did not have, the mother could not afford medical services. So this team of doctors offer free correction services to many of these victims. Yeah. And then also in another related case, a young man of about 24 years decided to rape a woman who was about 80 years. So as a result, I think, of the trauma, she dislocated her hip. Who takes care of such medical services? So that is how now we identify these cases, make referral to the doctors, and they are in our facilities, and they are always willing to support. So we discuss issues to do with the policy, structure, and systematic challenges that are affecting provision of the medical and legal services. But also throughout the process, we have seen tremendous change, because at first many of our cases would collapse due to poor collection and preservation of the evidence. But now, through the support that we have from UNFPA, we are able to train our scene of crime officers, also to engage the community, because when an offense happens, the community is the first responder. Sometimes it is the mother, but they make an alarm and then invite the whole community. Now, when the community comes, they come in good faith, but they are trapped with. So we need to engage the community, and they know how to preserve such evidence so that we cannot miss it out. So that's how we are using our forensic evidence to support access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know most times survivors are not prepared, but we also need to learn to challenge them to preserve the evidence. However bitter the process is, that's the way to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, now take the next, the last but not least panelist, Mrs. Zambai Mimba. Madam Zambai Mimba, okay. She's going to share with us the measures that government will set up with is undertaking in terms of strengthening survivor-centered justice mechanisms. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Let me recognize the ministers, honorable ministers here present, and senior government officials. I also want to recognize Doris from your when she was in my friend, the same person here. That's what you see here. Thank you very much. I want to talk about others. As I said to you, and others.
10 minutes.
It's 10 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Minister has spoken so much about what we do as his government in Zimbabwe and what our Ministry of Justice is doing in collaboration with the Ministry of Women's Affairs on a whole of government approach, like to emphasize. But I want to say the government is deliberately taken a stance of multilateral collaborating with a number of partners to ensure that we meet the justice of the case. Instead of us having our victims coming to our offices in Harare, there is a rethinking in the justice access system. We are shifting from institution-centered to survivor-centered justice systems. We do community justice models with partners that we have. And before I go to partners, let me say the Ministry of Justice itself has got a legal aid directorate. The legal aid directorate takes cases of indigent people, especially women, especially children, and men who cannot afford, not only in relation to gender-based violence, but in relation to any matter, because we are saying justice for all by 2030. So the legal aid directorate is in all our 10 provinces. It has got head offices in 10 of our provinces. We have also escalated it to our districts to make sure that each district must have not only one, but for now we've done 5. And I'm happy to say that we are proceeding with that. So because of that, the approach is to go to the victim, closer to the victim, to cut on the other barrier of expenses. You know, when the victim arrives from where they're coming from to where they're supposed to be, the pain will have gone. You know, a lot of things, they will have forgotten about what happened. Sometimes they have to take 2-3 buses. They cannot narrate their story. But we have had the one-stop center, which my honorable minister has spoken about. But I want to add and say, we also have mobile one-stop centers, other than the ones that we already have. We have mobile one-stop centers, which go to the remotest areas in Zimbabwe for people to be able to report. And like has been said, the mobile one-stop shop is for everything. They will report to the police. There will be a medical doctor to look at them. There will be a counselor to do the counseling. There will be everyone who is supposed to be there to make sure that the victim does not end like a perpetrator. Yeah. Gone are those days when the victim will go to the police station, and when they get to the police station, they are told, that's domestic. It's between you and your our government, together with the development partners, are training our police officers to make sure that they take care of the victims. We have also gone on to do prevention and response embedded within communities. Communities are reached out by our development partners. We've got a program called SAFE that is being done by the United Kingdom government together with the Zimbabwe government. It's being tried. It's a 4-year program, but it's proving to be doing very well in the remotest of rural areas, where communities are taught to prevent domestic gender-based violence. Instead of concentrating on a lot of things, they are given loans, they do projects, And as they do those projects, they are also taught about how to live as families happily. I think there was a study that showed that poverty was one of the drivers of gender-based violence. So to address that, projects are being done, and a family works as a family. Father, mother, and children, they have a project that they are running, and they get their money. Someone is coming to train them. There's a program also that works with the SAFE program. It's called the TOSE program, meaning together. So community members are trained. When community members have been trained, they then are able to assist victims. They are also able to teach their communities to live in peace. This is just a proactive approach before we get to the issues of violence. And these programs are also creating an environment for gender equality, where men and women are taught of the equality of their equality as was meant by God upon creation. The other thing as well that I may want to highlight is the victim-friendly units. We have 2 victim-friendly units in our country where the victim is taken in, and I think there's a demarcation between the victim and the perpetrator. You don't have to go to court together. The victim goes the other side. There's also the virtual court processes that also happen. That has been very, very helpful in ensuring that the victim is assisted. The integrated electronic case management system, this one has really helped us to have cases done online, so that even the victim doesn't have to go. Apart from the victim friendly, the victim does not have to be hearing, because the hearings can be done, but this one also needs a lot of improvement. Our ministry is lobbying for a register for sex offenders. Sex offenders register. The Ministry of Justice realized that the perpetrators, if you look at the court record, usually you see the same perpetrator, together, race, beauty, similar, yes, exactly. So we think that for the benefit of the perpetrator, there is need for rehabilitation, there is need for counseling, and there is also need for correction. So the sex offender register will not only assist the victim, but it will also assist the perpetrator. When we have addressed issues with the perpetrator, we then know that the victim is very safe. So we are taking all those approaches in order to make sure that issues of gender-based violence are eradicated in our country. It's almost a naming and shaming. You can't be named and you continue to do it. When you know you are now in the register, you don't want to continue to do it. In the register. So, yeah. And what else can we talk about? I think the training of members that I've talked about goes a long way. My minister spoke about the Women's Bank. That has really empowered women. When a woman is empowered, sometimes they've got the confidence to walk and report a case against them. But when they are not empowered, they will need money. They have to ride the bus. They will need this. So we've got this bank that really assists women in their projects. They give loans and they give back, but we also have to do a project. Sometimes literacy makes us the worst victims in any scenario. So we really appreciate the efforts that have been made by the government through the Ministry of Women's Affairs to try and emancipate women. I thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing Zimbabwean experience. Colleagues, especially Ugandans around the table, I think Zimbabwe is challenging us on a number of issues. First and foremost, we don't have a legal aid law. Right, Honorable Prime Minister, we need to have our bill passed into law. That also is related to the sexual offences. Yeah. I think we also need to make progress on that. And of course, our progress on the witness protection. Those three are very, very important. And scaling up our efforts on technology facilitated access to justice. There's a lot we can do when we harness technology in terms of access to justice. Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary, for sharing those insights. I'll give an opportunity to all of us, but I'll only take only 5 questions in the interest of time. Please be very clear which panelists you're subject to your question to, so that we take notes and respond appropriately. Honorable, I'll start with Honorable Kabahenda. Second is my neighbor, is I didn't capture the name. Reverend. Then number 3 is my sister behind, the 2 sisters behind me, and then she'll be the last one. So Honorable Kabahenda, you have the floor. Let's pass the microphone around. Please let us be precise so that we are able to utilize the time effectively.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session. I want to really appreciate the presentations, and even when Zimbabwe was giving us a challenge, I think even us in Uganda, we have a lot that very many people don't know. And so I want to thank you, DPP side and probation for the presentations you made, but I think it needs to be scaled up. We have the chairperson of the national chairperson for women councils in Uganda, and they have struck us up to the doorstep. So I don't know whether you wouldn't want to partner so that these people can really support in community engagements and as possibly informants at one time. But in all the submissions, Madam Chair, I didn't hear about resettling and reintegration of the victims. Sometimes, after rescuing and rehabilitating, resettling becomes a very critical question for the victim. Because after you have done all that, do you simply tell them to go back home to the violent situations and their tormentors? So can we see whether there is actually a strategy, country strategy for resettlement or reintegration of the victim?
Thank you very much, Honorable Kabahenda. Reverend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mine is not a question, but a comment. As a man, that to a large extent, there is the thought that GBV only concerns women. But I think there is an increase, even back in our country. As recent as last week, you would realize that the suicide index has increased amongst young men, and all of them is linked to some relationship or some love triangle of some sort. And that's very important in our GBV, that we should also bring in the women and the men element. Secondly, it is also the cultural understanding. Some of the problems that we see are based on the thought, the worldview of us as Africans.
the worldview that the woman is a rejuvenation or a refreshing aspect of culture. So when a young man rapes an old woman, it's not for the fun, but it's for the cleansing. And we need to then fight that. You have to fight the thinking that he has gone to a medical doctor of an African persuasion who tells him that you need a woman who is no longer menstruating to cleanse you. Then he rapes an old woman. Secondly, the teaching that men do not cry. And that teaching does not come from men, it comes from women. Why are you crying, my boy? You are a man. Etc., etc. And we then need to look at how then our spiritual beliefs go even further. When they now become Christians, they don't become Christians in isolation or in a vacuum of their culture. The one-on-one sessions with the prophet or the powerful men of God, the papas, does not take the cultural or African traditional religion thought out of it. When they say, I have not been having my own business moving, then they will tell you, no, the spirits have not connected. And how do you connect with the spirit? It's no longer just through a handkerchief, but it is through sexual intercourse. And so those are the things that we are faced with in our continent. And it's a pity that when we just look at the legal aspects, psychosocial aspects, economic aspects, we leave out some of these that tend to be very difficult to explain in English. And they are best explained in our humble local languages.
Thank you very much, Reverend. And invite my three other people to make their comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fungai Samshonga from the UK and from Zimbabwe. Right. Thank you so much for all the contribution that has been said to give dignity to the woman, the voice and the power, and to demand our rights. My question is to Ms. Irene Ekonga from FIDA. From your project and what you're doing, my question was, how are you funding your work so that it does not abruptly stop in this geopolitical instability environment that we are in? A lot of funding has been cut. But from what you are saying, you are doing quite a lot. You've got some counselors, you've got some legal practitioners supporting. How is your work being funded? Thank you. Thank you very much to all those that have spoken. I just want to ask how you are dealing with the manifestation of power that comes out of the accused person invoking their constitutional rights to protection, even at the ensuring or trying to get out of actually taking accountability for what they've done by citing their constitutional right as an abused person. I'm asking that question because we recently have a case where, for some of us who work in the gender movement, we thought it was a done deal, but I was just reading that this week the person has been given bail, even though he had already been sentenced, but he has been given bail because he's citing that the DNA issues that the speakers were talking about may have been tampered with and whatnot. And he is basing his arguments on his constitutional rights as an accused person. And I get that they have rights, but how do we mediate the power of the person who already had power and is now trying to use the constitution to even give themselves more power, in my belief.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Catherine. I feel so honored to be among such amazing work and brains. Honestly, I'm so honored to be here. My question is to Miss Irene again, Ekonga. You do some work with other CSOs in Uganda, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. And I work for Katosi Women Development Trust. We work in the rural and fishing communities of Mukono, Kalangala, and Bugoma. We had a case where we had to report because we don't have that's not it's not really our place because we don't have any psychologists on tap. We really don't have that kind of resources. And we had a case that we reported to FIDA 2 years ago. And up to now, I've been following up on it just a little bit to find out what happened. But I wanted to ask what systems or what structures do you have to assist or to support other CSOs? Because we're constantly experiencing gender-based violence in these communities. Poverty is a big deal. So obviously this is going to impact the women and the communities. So I wanted to know what systems, how can we work together more collaboratively so we can, because gender-based violence is in Uganda, it's a big, very, very big issue, especially for us who work in rural communities. Women are literally dying. So yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. Let me give an allowance to only one person and then we go into our conclusions. I just
the man in the room. My name is Sajak Florida Cho. I'm the National Chairperson of the Women's Council of Uganda. I'm happy to be here and I want to thank the panelists. Thank you so much. And a lot has been done in the fight against BBV and a lot is still needed. But my area of concern is how if we concentrate more on the causes of domestic violence, what are those issues that bring up domestic violence, and we invest heavily in those areas so that we can mitigate. As National Women's Council, we have a structure that goes down to the village level. We have 5 women leaders that is in Uganda, in all the villages of Uganda. And I would wish, and we had actually suggested that we develop a household model where our leaders, based at the village level, would actually concentrate on issues that arise that can cause domestic violence, because these are leaders based at the village. They know homes that are likely to have domestic violence. Thank you.
thank you very much. Can I have the microphone?
This one.
Yes. Thank you very much, members that have raised questions. That's an indication that you have been listening attentively, and we don't take that for granted. So I'd like to give my panelists 1 minute each to respond to the questions that have been raised. I start with Irene. Over to you.
A request for 1.5 minutes since I had 2 questions. So in terms of funding, as an NGO, a lot of our funding is the traditional funding that NGOs use. So we have funding from UN agencies like UN Women supports a lot of our work in Uganda and has for a long time. We also have support from UNDP. We have governments, the embassy of Sweden, the Swedish government, Denmark, Netherlands. They also support a lot of our work. But in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, we have been moving towards diversifying our funding sources from the traditional donors. And to that end, we started doing fundraising from individuals as well as corporate entities. And for some of the work that we do, for instance, we have had what we call a family justice desk, where our office is at the court, and we provide legal support to people who are court users, right, who are coming in to handle their cases. And this was actually supported by an individual. So we have people that are now supporting our work and to a scale where they can actually support an office to run over a period of time, 6 months and so on. So we are really trying to invest in this and in working with corporate entities so they are able to support the work. So leveraging local philanthropy, I think that is very important. The other two things that I'll mention is because we are an association of women lawyers, we are a membership-based organization. So we also have lawyers that are our members, and we collect some fees in terms of subscription fees and so on, and membership fees, as well as we have a leadership academy as an institution where we are using all of the knowledge that we have learned and the experience that we have to then grow practitioners and development workers. So we train them and for a minimal fee. So that is kind of how we collect a bit of money to support this work. In terms of working with NGOs, sorry, Commissioner, 20 seconds. We do, I think that the best way to do it is through an MOU, for instance, especially in some of these areas. So we usually have MOUs where cases can be referred to us, but also cases need to be referred through our system, through the legal aid clinic. It's usually easier if you refer the cases that way, rather than just sending the client. Yeah, but we can have a conversation about this and see how to support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irene. And Mrs. Vinay.
Thank you very much. I will respond to the resettling of victims. In Zimbabwe, we got a lot of shelters that are given the victims. Our one-stop centers do the same. They've got, when somebody comes to report, they shelter them, they rehabilitate them, they also go through a lot of counseling. We have got what we call Musasa projects, which does those all over our country, even in towns. We also have got a Musasa district safe shelter that also does the Gobi shelter. We also have community-based shelters that are being run by Zimbabwe Women Lawyers Association. So we are actually very active. Men, sometimes I would say men, okay, they look for their wives when they violated them and they cannot find them because we will hide them for their safety and for their rehabilitation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Glenby. Lydia. Thank you very much.
The resettlement and integration program in Uganda begins with the social inquiry reports, which tell us about the victim, the family, the employment, the social life of the victim. So it begins from there. But mainly what we do, our community engagements are very important. So the community assessment reports that I told you that we provide to the judiciary, we get to understand, we do a lot of engagements with the communities, preparing them to accept these victims and to support these victims when they come back. But also, because one of the main causes of PBV is actually poverty, like we already alluded to, we support them through skilling, simple things, skilling like hairdressing, tailoring, but also like making liquid soap, bakery, simple bakery, so that when they go back in the communities, they're able to sustain themselves. But we use a cadre of officers on ground at community level that we call the parasocial workers and the BBV of actors at community level that support them through constant home visits, continuous guidance and counseling, continuous support by visiting their homes, and continuous referral to services when they are actually back in the communities. Thank you.
Two things. When an accused is charged to court, they come on a presumption of innocence. So it's because of that presumption that they would want to exercise their constitutional right. But in Uganda, the constitutional right is to apply. So the moment you make your application for bail, you have exercised your constitutional right. About whether you'll get the bail or not is a different subject. And it is based on the discretion of the judicial officer. So we have trained our prosecutors to pull their best song at that moment. We will find it and we'll make sure that you bring in your best case to show why this person should not benefit from bail. When there's a conviction, then it comes to us a different thing, because now the presumption of innocence has already now been rebutted by that conviction. So it presents also different arguments also at that level, especially if it is at an appellate level. So that's how we handle it back at home. And as I close, it's important that we tap into every resource available. So while we engage the men, it is also important that we engage religious leaders. So we are working with religious leaders and also cultural leaders. They are a very critical component, because if you don't engage them, then we will not speak the same language. So every resource available to you is very critical in trying to work and do this work of giving. Men are important, because when men are engaged, then they will understand that to be a man, you don't need somebody to tell you it is a gift that you receive from God upon creation. And you don't need to beat anybody to recognize you as a man. Or to be beaten. Interestingly, we have also realized that there is an increasing rate where men are now also victims of gender-based violence. Yes. Yeah. And they have learned to report. I have had full successful prosecution where men are victims of violence. And the perpetrators are serving. Who are the women and the wives are serving sentences with sentences having been confirmed even up to our Supreme Court. So we encourage men to report and not to die in silence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. She has closed our panel discussion very effectively. Let's not die in silence. Let's report. And of course, seek support services. As our take home, I would like to emphasize the following that has been coming through our discussion.
Before you close, please allow me 1 second. Oh, I think it's so important to thank the organizers, especially to thank the government of Uganda. This theme, from commitments to change, delivering survivor-centered justice, we've learned a lot even from Zimbabwe, as we're listening to the probation officer. And I think as a ministry, we seem to get these gaps where we need to connect with the probation officer, so that when these women and girls come to the ministry, we follow through them and see that they've gone through the whole process of access to justice. I am impressed by what Honorable Kabayemba said. I think that is important, and that's what we're talking about when I say shelters, because perpetrators, they will follow through their victim, and with a knife sometimes in their pockets. So it's important to really protect them until such a time that the perpetrator also is had some counseling and it's safe for the woman to go back. My reverend spoke a lot on patriarchal thinking. I think this is where we have to do a lot of education. And since Beijing, so many years ago, issues of gender equality and gender-based violence has been actually been articulated by women. But we feel that we need the he for she champion. there was that solidarity campaign which you and women started, the for shit, and we need our men, starting from the family, the boys to encourage their girl to the sisters, to say you the sister that you can do it, and to also understand that they have some rights. The issues he raised here are in culture. The culture is dynamic. We're moving with the time. We can't continue to do things which are harmful practices. And the good thing about it, when there's goodwill from the highest office of the country, that helps a lot. Our president actually signed the high-level political compact against ending violence against women and girls and all these harmful practices. So we continue. I really like what you're doing in Uganda. The issue for having leaders in every village. I think bringing in that element of community and shifting from that institutional setting all the way to the survivor will draw with. I can't talk about economic importance, economic empowerment, because that will, when a woman is empowered, then she can actually have access to justice. I wanted to comment a little more about the one Farida, Women's Council of Uganda. That is something we need to do in my country. So we've learned something. We don't have a Zimbabwe Women's Council, and I think that is something we need to really look at. I have traveled to a place, Rwanda, for example, another African country, and what I liked most was they've got an organization of men. It's an organization called WAMEC. These are men who actually go all the way to the villages, households, talking about the benefits of living in a gender-based violence-free home. And that has helped a lot in terms of people understanding that they don't need. So when she asked what are the causes of domestic violence, when we do that kind of education, when we involve everyone, especially the men, the boy, the child, then we can really limit this gender-based violence. I want to say we've learned a lot as a country.
Next. I'm grateful that we've learned a lot. We're here to learn and share experiences. And that brings us to the end of our panel discussion. Allow me, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to move into the closing of our session. And on that regard, I would like to invite Madam Leila Sharifu, Chief of Gender, Human Rights and Inclusion, UNFPA, to give us a takeaway in terms of call to action. Over to you, Madam Leila.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished ministers and guests and colleagues, partners. Well, I've just been sitting here listening and learning myself, and really profoundly honored to be participating on behalf of UNFPA, the UN Population Fund, at this vital event on transforming justice systems for survivors of gender-based violence. I think it's not harmful to repeat again some of what was said, because a lot of our work, and people in this room, a lot of our work is really about repeating, repeating and repeating and repeating until it's heard. And justice is not served until justice is not served and not delayed, as everybody here has been saying. Now, for us, what I've heard today is access to justice is really when a woman or a girl can report violence without having that fear. It means a girl has the right even to inherit property without discrimination, right? We're talking about gender equality in all of its facets that end up leading to this violence and discrimination. It means that if a woman is living in a rural area, and we heard about some partners talking about the good work they're doing in rural areas, or a refugee settlement, or an informal urban community, wherever she may be, she should be able to claim her rights without stigma, without discrimination, without cost and procedural obstacles. Now, access to justice, of course, is one key component. And Reverend, you talked about there's so many complexities that underlie why the violence might be happening in the first place. But this CSW70 is really focused on justice. And I'm so heartened to listen to the experiences from Uganda and Zimbabwe today about how the justice is really, it's got a long way to go, but really there is some remarkable work going on the ground, and I'm very happy to hear when countries do come together and they say, okay, this is something we're going to now try in our country. And did you know in Rwanda they're doing this and this? It's really, it's so beautiful, and it's one of the things that I'm delighted to just witness here today. So for millions of girls around the world, and I have 2 boys. I'm raising boys, and anyone who's raising boys knows it's not easy. Raising girls is not easy either. But raising boys, you really want them to grow up to be good men. But the statistic that really keeps me up at night, and one that we're using in our global advocacy these days, is, and based on new numbers, unfortunately the numbers haven't changed, right? The new prevalence data came out a couple of months ago, WHO and others, UN Women and UNFPA, many of us participated, and it hasn't budged. It's still 1 out of 3 women across their lifetime will be subjected to, witness more, subjected to violence. 1 in 3. Every 10 minutes, a woman is killed, oftentimes at the hands of somebody she knows, oftentimes an intimate partner, someone in her family. Every 10 minutes. So as we've been sitting here, this has happened multiple times over the course of the last 2 hours. So for me, these statistics keep me up at night. But when I'm here listening to these experiences about government, civil society, UN coming together to try to address these injustices, it really gives me hope, tremendous hope. So at UNFPA, we believe that, and I think everyone around the table, and I know my colleague from UN Women as well, we've talked a lot, many meetings, many convenings. Spaces like CSW are critical. It's been happening for 70 years, which is incredible, actually, this commission. And it's these spaces that keep these issues alive at the global level, and they're so critical. But let's talk a little bit about action, right? In terms of what do we do is kind of the next steps at the global level in terms of our advocacy. Well, one thing that I'd just like to call out, call action 1, justice systems must function as a coordinated ecosystem. And I think this is what we heard, not as isolated institutions. You need to have that multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approach. That's not new, but again, a lot of our work is repeating, like I said in the beginning, and it's worth repeating. Uganda's experience shows us that the strengthening forensic evidence, as you spoke about, really is critical, and it needs that coordination between health, police, prosecutors, the judiciary, and this can significantly improve justice outcomes for survivors. This is key. So getting that forensic capacity up to speed is critical. Call to action 2, we know what works. We actually do. So can we scale up specialized GBV justice mechanisms, special GBV court sessions? If proven to be effective in reducing delays, strengthening prosecution outcomes, and minimizing survivor re-traumatization, which many of you talked about as well. Call to action 3, expand access to justice through inclusive and innovative approaches. Justice systems have to reach every woman and girl, right? Including those in rural, underserved, refugee hosting communities. Unfortunately, 3 decades on after the Beijing Platform for Action, the ICPD Program of Action, many reports, many reviews have showed us that actually it's the girls and the women who are most vulnerable, who are most marginalized, who face multiple forms of discrimination, compounding forms of exclusion, are the ones being left behind. So at the end of the day, what do we do to reach that last mile, so to speak? It's not easy. Sometimes it takes more effort, specialized expertise, and more money. But that's what we have to do. That's the human rights imperative. But those are the ones that always continually be left behind. So we know that mobile legal aid and one-stop service centers, as we heard, do reduce that geographic, that financial and institutional barriers that those marginalized women and girls often face. Those very barriers that prevent them from accessing justice. So, Excellencies, distinguished ministers, colleagues, friends, partners, Justice for survivors is not only a legal obligation, it is a human rights imperative, as I said, and really a foundation for gender equality. If the justice is there and it's being served and it's a reality, many other things fall into place for women and girls. So at a minimum, we have to get the justice right. And so this conversation today has been really about that and about everything that's going on in these two wonderful countries. And really look forward to myself sharing what I've heard today with others as well throughout the rest of this week, which is really tomorrow and next week. But thank you so much. And you've really showed us that transformation is possible. It's challenging. It's sometimes slower than we want, but it is very much possible. And it's due to the fight and the leadership of many of you who wake up every day and say, this is hard work, but I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and keep doing this. So thank you for all that you do. And thank you for sharing your experiences.
Thank you very much, Madam Leila, for emphasizing the fact that transformation is possible. It is possible as we did out of this thing and back to our countries. But of course, we have to exercise our leadership and agency as we do all this work. Excellencies, honorable members, we are coming to the end of our side event, and allow me to take this privilege and honor to invite the Right Honorable Third Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda, Mama Rukia Nakadama, to close our side event. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Distinguished Excellencies, colleagues, ministers, partners, friends, and everybody in this room. This is a session which can go on until cows come back home. Yeah. Because it is touching everybody's heart. I don't think there is anywhere where this has not happened. So anyway, it is I want to say that as we bring this important discussion to a close, allow me to extend sincere appreciation to all the speakers and participants who have shared their insights and experiences today. Your contributions reminds us that ensuring access to justice for women and girls is not only a legal obligation, but a fundamental pillar of inclusive and equitable societies. We are particularly grateful to the governments of Uganda and Zimbabwe for their leadership in convening this dialogue and for their continued commitment to strengthening justice systems that respond effectively to the needs of survivors of gender-based violence. Their efforts demonstrate the importance of national ownership and institutional leadership in driving meaningful reforms. I think my colleagues from Uganda, we have a lot of similarities in trying to see how we can solve the issue of gender-based violence in Zimbabwe, but we have also learned other lessons. There are new lessons that we have learned really. We thank you, Zimbabwe. We also wish to recognize the invaluable partnership of UN Women, whose global mandate and technical leadership continue to support countries in advancing gender-responsive justice systems. Our sincere appreciation also goes to Australian Development Corporation for its steadfast support to the Justice for Her initiative. This partnership reflects the critical role that development partners play in enabling innovative approaches that bring justice closer to women and girls. The discussions today have underscored an important lesson. Transforming justice systems requires coordinated action across institutions and sustained investments over time. Initiatives such as the Justice for Her model shows that when the judiciary, government institutions, civil society, and development partners work together, it is possible to reduce delays, strengthen survivor support, and build trust in justice institutions. However, our work does not end here. Ensuring timely survivor-centered justice demands continued commitment, political, institutional, and financial. Scaling and sustaining initiatives that improve access to justice will be essential if we are to dismantle the structural barriers that too often prevent women and girls from seeking and obtaining justice. As we continue to deliberate on the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, let us reaffirm our shared commitment to justice systems that are responsive, inclusive, and accessible to all women and girls. Let today's dialogue serve as a catalyst for strong partnership, sustained investment, and concrete action so that no survivor is left waiting for justice. As I end, I want to take this opportunity to thank the men who are in this room. Thank you so much. Yes, especially, yes, because when you are here, you are participating, and when we are complaining mainly about the men. So if the men are here, we know you are supporting us so much. You can take on this task and of course talk to other people, especially the men who want to be put, whom they say they are going to put on the list. You can talk to them because if a man talks to a man, I think it makes a big difference. Not like a woman can talk to a man. So thank you so much for participating in this session. May Almighty bless all of you. Thank you.
Can we, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, give ourselves a loud and happy. Thank you very much. It's been a lively discussion. I had kindly request the Right Honorable Prime Minister and the team that has participated to come here for a photograph. And others can also join. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And we are working with the department. We are pretty I appreciate so much. So, Addis. Yes. Yeah, well. Yes, percentage. Because once we identify the abused, what do we do? Similar to this one.
No, I can just what I say on the ministry is the feature home.
Maybe we
Yeah.
that's right.
Or like do this.